You guys ever seen these kind of things before? Thanks for having me. I'll give a little brief as I can. A little history about myself, a little testament at the same time. My name is James Nelson. I do hold a Coast Guard captain's license, but by all means, that's more of a business certificate than anything that I've actually felt like I've earned as those in uniform on their bike. But several years ago, probably about 10 years now, I decided that the cubicle life was not for me. So I tried to follow my dreams in certain ways, and in doing so, found myself fishing with FLW, fishing a couple of years there on a pro bass circuit, and being away from home. I got 4 kids. Am I speaking loud? I got 4 kids, and being away from home, my age, 4 kids, traveling, I realized right away that, I kind of went past my time to do that. Being on the road, that's tough. You got to be better than a good fisherman. Moreover, I started to lose the fun in the fishing, and I started really realizing that I was stepping further and further away from Christ. On the road, I found others who had gone through this long before me and started a group called the Fellowship of Christian Anglers Society. You guys have heard of Focus. It was actually started in the early 80s by Jimmy Houston, Hank Parker, Roland Martin, and Al Linder. These guys were away from home. All those guys are fishing professional tournaments now. I don't think they do so much now. I think every once in a while Roland kicks costly paddock. That's about it. But these guys, realized they were away from home and on tour all the time. Could never find their schedule to match the schedule of the local church community there, so they kept missing masses and a chance for fellowship. So they just kind of joined together. And all the FLW tournaments, they have a focus meeting. Usually right after the first day of the tournament, they'll have one at 7 p.m. that night. Found myself going to about 3 or 4 tournaments, always hearing about it, and I thought, I'll go. Went to one, and they had helped put me on it for right there. Came home and prayed to the Lord, told him, look, my life is your life, do with it as you can. Before he knew it, I was back at home, calling advice of a few of my friends saying, why don't you get your captain's license? Why don't you follow up with this guide team I've been talking about since I was doing mechanics. Okay. So I did, and I haven't looked back since. It's been tough. There were some years there that I think some of you know. I tried fishing SWBA there for a while and kept having to send my partner going solo because I'd get a call the night before. Hey, you take me to the bay tomorrow? This is the kind of gig you don't pass down. You get the work, you take it. So a lot of times Robert unfortunately had to fish solo. I had to work. But the last couple of years, probably about 6 years now, I've gone full time, whereas I wasn't doing any side business, security guard, any office meetings at night or anything like that. So I've been full-time fishing guy every day, and that's all just giving to the Lord and just telling Him, guide me, if He did. And I tried to do that a little bit with my fishing. I try to, bring back the fun, and I love taking families out. I love, just the fact I get compliments all the time. People tell me all the time that it's so nice to know that I'm not some old crusty sulky dog swearing all the time with the kids. I can't believe there are guys out there still like that, but there are. I've heard stories, and I'm not going to name names. But, I get compliments on that, and I feel like I'm not doing that. Somebody else is doing that for me. And so I really was flattered when Jason contacted me coming tonight because I think this is a wonderful group. Everything I've heard about the club, everything that I've read and seen, and I've seen it as a witness in several of the members that I've met throughout the years with SWBA or even just at the long times together. So I'm really flattered to be here. Excuse me if I take a moment to breathe. What I'd like to talk about tonight, now that we've done all that, is just talk about stuff that some of you may already know, may already be doing, But I always like to listen when we got Fred Hall's show coming up soon. I like to go to the seminars and stuff, even of the guys that I've heard many times before, like old Mike Gardner. I mean, I just love hearing some of the stuff he says over and over and over. And some of it sticks, and I'll be sharing some of that tonight because it took me hearing it over and over and over before it stuck and I actually started doing it. Let's start with that. How many of you guys here fish soft plastic baits with lead heads? How many of you are gluing your tails on? If you're not, start it. This is something that, I don't know what always happened, but every time I was at the Fred Hall shows, they had me do a little speaking thing. I've been doing it probably about 4 years now, where somebody thought that it was a good idea to have me get on speak. And every year, every seminar, or whatever, however, 2, 3, 4 days I was up there, I was always following Mike Gardner, and I'm getting my stuff at the side right at the last 5, 10 minutes of fish stick. And he always brings up the super glue thing. It took me probably 2 years before it sunk in. Hey, that's a good idea, and here's the reason why. How many times do you guys get this? I call it shortsing, right? Just like at the public pool when some big kid comes to pull their shorts down. Same thing, right? Well, if you put the super glue on there, I don't know if you guys saw, I didn't really tug on it for a long piece of glue. Put a little dab of super glue right on the shank right before you put the tail on. And what happens is this. How many times you guys get bit, pause for a second, fish didn't grab it, and he comes back and he bites it, or maybe his travel partner got it. That can happen if it looks like this. If it looks like this, it looks like a hunk of plastic, they're going to just ignore it and move on. They're probably wiping their brow. Wow, that was full of attention. But if it still looks like a fish, there's a very good chance you're going to get a follow-up strike. So it's important. It's not just to be frugal to save plastics, which it does do, but it's also so that you always are in the game. Because you found that fish, now you just got to catch it. And we all know that's the hardest part, right, is finding the fish. Once you find them, most of us here at any skill level can catch them. I know, I take people from Ohio who have never seen a bait vest before and they catch them. So it's a matter of finding them first. So that like I said, I have to lead with that, and I have to give credit to old Mike Gardner for that one because, and I don't know, I'm sure he didn't invent that, maybe somebody else showed him sometime, but it works. And I highly suggest gel. That way you don't get a little glue ball all over your boat. But brand and price does not matter. The 50-cent tube and the $3 tube will clog halfway through. Just the same, so it doesn't matter. Do yourself a favor, save the money. I go to Harbor Freight, I get a whole rack of these things for $2. They're the little tubes, and they're perfect, because you want a small tube, because that way if it gets blocked out, at least you got most of it out there. So there you are. That's the little trick, real quickly on that. We fish a lot of soft plastics in the bay, and I do so even on my guide trips, even though I know I don't have to, and I'll get to that later because there's something else I'm going to talk about that I try to do a little differently than I think a lot of guys that I see out there. One of the things is I try not to fish unless I'm being asked to. A lot of times I'll take solo guys. I can take 1 to 4 people on my boat. Sometimes I'll take a solo guy. And I know that person's position because I've been with guides, and I know that if he's not doing something, either on a push-pull or on the trolling motor or with a fishing rod in his hand, I can do this. So a lot of times if I'm a solo person with a guide, I'll tell them, go ahead and fish if you feel like it. And I get the same thing sometimes with solo guys. So I might fish, but most of the time I'm not. And the reason being, how many people here know what a short strike is? How many people here know that our fish short striking? You've been fishing, you know they short strike. I get folks from the Midwest and all, when they get the chance to go fishing, unless they're ice fishing, they get a chance to go fishing when those fish actually want to hit. Unless they're walleye fishermen, most of the bass, the pike, the muskie, they actually hit. But we know that sometimes even the biggest, grumpiest sand bass will sometimes just barely do this. And if I'm fishing, I won't see that on my customer's rod tip. So a lot of times I'm telling them set the hook, because they don't even know they have to fish. But I do, because I'm watching it. So it helps them if I don't fish. Also helps them if I'm looking at other things, bird diving, bait schools, that kind of thing. So it helps them if I don't fish. And it helps me, because if they're catching fish and I'm not, they're more likely to fill out a good survey card at the end of the day. But that's lead heads. You know, if you guys got questions on that, we'll talk about it. But I think that's pretty common practice. We all know how to fish a lead head. Here's something that I do a little differently, and I don't see it a lot. I'm starting to see more, and of course, guys are talking about it on forums and boards. Something that's a little different, especially if you're fishing just during a slow bite. Maybe you got a lot of wind, but the fish just aren't biting. Maybe the tide's not quite right, current's not moving. Or the fish are just grouped up and they're holding tight structure. And you can't get the boat on it just right to get that lead head working right. This is a drop shot. Now this is something that goes back probably thousands of years in fishing. Although it gets credit a lot to folks in Japan who are coming over fishing freshwater bass tournaments here and sharing it with our bass guys. You know, guys like Aaron Martins, Mike Folkstad, guys like this that were running tournaments out here on the West Coast, started seeing all these Japanese visitors at the U.S. Open back in 1981, 82, when a bunch of the Japanese backseaters were out fishing pros. These guys had never seen lake fishing, and they were just out fishing these pros out here who were just, what is that rig you're doing? And what they had was a little worm, well, a little bitty hook. They're throwing 6-pound test on a spinning line with a little bitty weight. Well, basically, it's a dropper loop rig. How many guys here fish dropper loops, especially live bait and halibut, right? It's the same thing, except you don't have the big loop. It's tied straight to the line, and you've got your bait attached straight to the hook, straight to the line. Now, what I do in saltwater, what I've done in the bay, is I've adapted a little bit. We're obviously not throwing 6-pound. You can, but I throw 20. The reason being is fish don't care about the line in our bay, especially San Diego Bay, Newport. You guys know that water's kind of green, right? So you don't need to worry about the fish being line shy. The other reason, if you get a halibut, come munch it like this, you better wish you had 20 pounds. Okay? And even at that, sometimes, you know, how they do what how they do, break our hearts sometimes. The other thing I do is I'll use anywhere from a 1 to 2 ounce weight. Now in San Diego Bay, as a lot of you know, sometimes we're fishing 45, 50 feet deep. It's not like Newport where we're skipping under docks and 3 feet of water. So we're fishing a lot deeper. What I like to do is use a swivel here. This rig has a tendency to twist your line. Now a lot of the freshwater guys have a little swivel on their weight, but I'll tell you what, that does almost no good. The reason being, this is what causes a twist. This gets in here and causes a twist. You got a swivel down here. Okay, you protected that end of the line, but what about the rest of it? You did nothing. I like to use braid, because it twists up less. But whatever you like to use is fine. The other reason why I use a swivel, and you guys probably see that thing is big enough that a dog can jump through it. Yeah. The reason why I like that big swivel is you get a 10-year-old kid all excited, reels up that fish, and does this. That swivel is protecting my tip. It's keeping that fish. It's also protecting the fish because, you know, the fish's lips aren't going to fit through there. But a little excited 10-year-old kid's going to try and get his lips in there. I'm going to keep reeling. As far as the length here, you know, experiment with that.